Hello, friends, and thank you as always for visiting the Legend Sports Universe YouTube channel. Legend Sports Universe, where legends play forever. This is a quick, hopefully, video just talking a little bit about a mod I have just uploaded, the recently begun Franchise Stars Baseball League project that I have developed for MLB The Show 22. It's just gotten underway here on the channel. As many of you are aware, we had a few opening day broadcasts yesterday. But I have uploaded the mod for the first year of the Franchise Stars Baseball League. You can see it there. It's labeled as FSBL.V1 under the LSU Dynasties handle, listed as a historic roster in the vault. But I wanted to go and kind of discuss, for those who may not be familiar with the project, exactly what you can expect from this, because it's not your typical all-time mod. The purpose of this is I want to develop a roster set and a league that has staying power to it, that has years to it, that has an evolution to it. And MLB The Show kind of limits you in that way. You can't create draft classes and stuff like that like you can with something like NBA 2K. So I kind of have to manipulate it a bit for my purposes. The advantage that you do have, though, is that you can edit draftees. So it will allow me to do what I'm looking to do here. But like I said, I'm going to have to doctor it a bit. We're going to kind of go over how this whole project will work and what this initial roster that you can download now will entail. So, and I've changed it a little bit since I originally did this write-up. This is what I posted a few months ago when I started work on the project. But the base of the Franchise Stars Baseball League is that each franchise gets a master list of its 100 top players based on WAR. It's the top 8 at each of the infield positions, including catcher, the top 20 outfielders, the top 25 starting pitchers, and the top 15 relievers. The initial roster is based on 40 players that are randomly selected from that list of 100, which means that each franchise may not start out with and they probably won't, start out with their top 40 players. Those remaining 60 guys will ultimately enter the Franchise Stars Baseball League. They're simply not going to be there for year one. So what that's going to do is it's going to let these franchises kind of develop a bit over the years. We'll do an example in a minute with the Yankees. I'll kind of show you what I mean by all this. All the players are rated by me using my formulas, as always, with everything I do here in the Legend Sports Universe. I've been rating players for more than 25 years for various video games, baseball in particular. My Total Miners roster set was a fundamental part of High Heat Baseball and Out of the Park Baseball and MVP Baseball, back when EA Sports actually had a baseball license. And I no longer have the time to do roster projects with a deadline of an opening day kind of thing, just because real life gets in the way. But a project like this, I can kind of do at my leisure as time I have available. So it's a little bit more open-ended, which is perfect for me, but I still have a passion for doing it. But my formulas get a little bit intricate. They use standard data, obviously, but they use sabermetric data, defensive runs saved. I use data such as the old speed score that Bill James had devised to develop speed ratings, and a fundamental thing that I use are called Davenport translations, which are created by a gentleman named Clay Davenport, who was with Baseball Prospectus for a long time, and he basically devised a method to take players from across eras and put them in a similar modern kind of era and say how they would perform. So basically, and again, we'll get to that in a little bit, but players who say were home run leaders back in the dead ball era, when guys were only hitting 8, 9, 10 home runs, like Shoeless Joe Jackson, they will be among home run leaders in this environment, kind of relating them how they performed in their era and putting it all together so players perform with the same level of play relative to their peers. The goal there being just to kind of honor the ability of old time players and kind of put everybody on a level playing field. As I mentioned, you can edit draftees. So when I say that, what you'll see that it says version 1, and in the description of the roster, it calls it year 1. I'm going to be building this roster set over time. So the set that's available now is just the initial 40 men for each franchise randomly picked. So lots of all-time greats are not going to be in this roster set. If you were looking for something like that, tons of guys have done all-time and franchise sets. There are plenty out there. That's up to you to decide whether you think they are good or not. I'm not going to weigh in on any of that. But there are tons of options out there available if that's what you're looking for here. The final version of this project will develop into that, but I do not have a timeline for when I'm going to get to that because I don't need everybody at this present time. So as I mentioned, you can edit the draftees. So each year, I said 3 random players when I originally posted this list. I'm actually probably going to do 4 from the remaining 60 of that 100-player list. Plus, I'm going to add a round of Negro Leaguers to each amateur draft as well. So ultimately, each team will end up with 5 new players added to the roster each season. Again, a big fundamental purpose of this roster set for me is honoring baseball history. So I want to get all these guys involved, but I also want them to all be, I want them to actually be involved. What happens with a lot of franchise star sets and all-time kind of sets, including ones that I did way back when, before I realized the error in doing it this way, is guys will load up 50, 60 players, whatever. And that seems good in theory, but then what happens is a lot of those guys never see the light of day. The second or third guy at a given position is never going to see the light of day because he's constantly behind a guy who's his same age but better than he is. So they just kind of wallow in the minors, or their ratings drop because they don't get used. And so they just kind of end up being wasted. So the idea here is that players are going to be assigned contract lengths of how many years they were with the franchise they end up assigned to. So between that and guys coming in through the years, hopefully everybody is going to get a crack at being involved in the league for various reasons. They may get traded somewhere else, player may leave via free agency and open up a spot for them, etc. Or they may just age out, depending on what the depending on when they enter and the age difference and all that kind of stuff. So as a quick example, we'll look here at the Yankees roster. So this is going to show the Yankees 100-player pool. There are 8 guys at each position of the infield, the 20 outfielders, the 25 starters, the 15 relievers. And you'll see from the Yankees' 40-man draw, they certainly got a bunch of great players. Gehrig is there, Jeter is there, Bernie Williams is there, Aaron Judge is there, etc. But the Yankees obviously don't have a bunch of players. They didn't get the draw of their top 3 catchers. They don't have Berra, Dickey, or Munson. They don't have Mattingly. They don't have Willie Randolph. They don't have Ruth Mantle or DiMaggio. So there's tons of great guys for the Yankees who are ultimately going to come into the franchise in future years. Again, they will all be represented eventually. They are just not here at the start, and as such, they are not part of the set that I just posted. One of the hopes of this is that it will in some fashion balance out rosters a little bit. If a team that doesn't have a great history gets a really good draw, like the Mariners got a pretty good lineup draw. They got Griffey, they got Ichiro right off the bat, they got Brett Boone, Tino Martinez, they got Julio Rodriguez. So like the Mariners get a good draw lineup-wise off the bat. The Expos, they're not the Nationals here. I've moved them back to Montreal, created their uniforms. The Cleveland Guardians are the Cleveland Indians. The Los Angeles Angels are the California Angels. But like the Expos, got a really good rotation. They've got Scherzer, they've got Strasburg, they got Vasquez, they got Steve Rogers. So they got a really good draw pitching-wise. And their lineup is solid, too. They ended up getting Harper and Andre Dawson and Jose Vidro. So, like, the Expos could raise a bit of a problem there because the Braves got great pitching but not a great lineup draw. The Phillies got a pretty good draw but not exceptional. The Mets got a fair draw but not great. So it kind of provides an opportunity for some franchises that in a classic franchise stars all-time league setup would never have a chance, honestly, to possibly have a chance here, which I think is pretty cool, and it's something that I wanted to achieve with the set. I'm not going to get too far into how I develop ratings, but I did want to show one thing here that I referenced before. This is a Davenport Translations stat line for Shoeless Joe Jackson. And you'll see this has Jackson hitting, between 20 and 40 home runs in several seasons of his career, which of course he never really did, but he was among the home run leaders at the time when he played because he's one of the best hitters ever. So one of the things this project does is it kind of it hopes to extrapolate guys from the old days to the modern era where they kind of perform in a modern realistic setting given their abilities for the time that they played. So what can you expect from this set? I've kind of adjusted things as far as ratings go. Performances, anytime there's an all-time set, you're going to kind of see a movement to the mean. So if you put a bunch of guys who are 850 OPS guys in their careers and a bunch of guys who are 2.5 ERA guys in their careers, well, you can't possibly have all those 850 guys be 850 OPS guys and the pitchers be 2.5 ERA guys. Everybody's going to kind of move towards the middle because the opposition is better. So the result here is you kind of end up with a late 70s, early to mid 80s style baseball. Home run leaders in the 40s. There are stolen bases in the mid to late 40s, low 50s. There are complete games and shutouts. I've messed with stamina in that regard, so you're going to see that kind of stuff. Batting leaders between 320 and 340 or so. Your ERA leaders between 2 and 2.5, that kind of thing. You're also going to see a wider variance in ratings than what you might be used to. For one thing, they're all kind of rated against their peers a bit here given the set. But I wanted to ensure that your real top guys are usually going to end up really being top guys. So I'm not particularly liberal with A potentials. There's a lot more B and C potentials for guys who you might think, hey, this guy really should be an A potential. It's, again, for the sake of the league. I want the historic elite players to excel, and there will this isn't a Diamond Mind engine, this isn't an Action PC engine, even an Out of the Park Baseball engine. It's not going to be that precise, but I've got this about as good as you're ever going to see, and I say that in humility, in as good as you're going to see the show engine get in a set like this stat-wise. There are always going to be a few outliers. There's usually a surprise guy or two in the top 10 in the batting leaders, but it's never going to be a guy who was a 250 hitter in his career. You'll see somebody like, just because it's an example that jumps out to me from one of the last tests that I did before I released this, somebody like a Bip Roberts of the Padres. Bip Roberts hit 300 multiple times in his career. Nobody's considering Bip Roberts an all-time great. But Bip Roberts can slide into the top 10 in a batting race, once every 4 or 5 sims. He was a good enough hitter to do that. So you'll see stuff like that kind of happen. Maybe a guy who was really a 20 home run hitter ends up making the top 10 because he hits, low 30s or something like that as an outlier. Most seasons, that guy will probably hit a bit less than that. That's just the nature of how the engine works. But for the most part, I think you are really going to like what you see in terms of the stat output from players and teams as a whole. Some teams are powerhouses, as you would expect. Great teams that got great draws, the A's and the Giants, for example. So I think it's a fun mix, and it's a great start to what I think is going to be a really, really fun project for a long time. One of the other big things you'll notice is that every player is created from scratch with no history. So none of the legend player models and none of the current player models are in the game. Everybody has been created. All the ratings for everybody were created by me. A quarter to a third, I would say, of the faces and models were done by me. The rest were done by other guys with other projects who've done great work. I gave shouts to them, listed the guys who I use most prominently on the Twitter page and the Facebook page the other day. If you want to go check them out, those guys did great work, and their great work on faces as I tried to get better at doing it as this project moved on. But their work saved me a ton of work, which obviously is hugely appreciated by me. But the idea of starting this project as something with, guys starting it with a year one, but having guys have a stat history didn't really seem to make much sense to me. So I wanted to wipe everybody's slate clean, and I believe I've done that. I don't think anybody slipped through the cracks. So you're kind of starting with a fresh base for a new league. So with that, I'm going to wrap this up. I didn't want to go too long. I just wanted to give people who are downloading the set and may not be familiar with it a bit of a hint of what to expect from the set and not misrepresent what the set is, because I know it's a kind of a niche kind of thing, and again, it's not your typical all-time set, but I hope it's one that you guys are going to have a heck of a lot of fun with and enjoy future versions as well. I'll do a few more videos in the coming days, probably about a little more about ratings and particulars and stuff like that you might see, how I devise certain things and all. But again, I want to keep this one relatively brief. Hopefully, if you like what you see, you'll follow the league that I'm going to be running here. I do the game broadcast myself. I have all the other sports in the Legend Sports universe going as well. Hockey and basketball, football will resume soon. Like and subscribe to the page. Follow the Facebook page as well. Also getting going on Twitter and Instagram. Most importantly, though, be good to each other, guys. Have fun. We'll talk soon.